Hello, everyone. This is Tina with Tiaza's Treasures, and today I have the December 2021 My Monthly Hero Arts kit of the month. Now, this kit comes with a lot of fun items. You get your little card that shows you what's in the kit. It also came with 3 reactive ink cubes in Fruit Punch, Lemon Drop, and a berry color. You get some really cute clothespins. I was going to use them, but I ended up not. You get a full-size background stamp with this fun little cityscape all over it. You also get your stamp pad that's got some really fun sayings. A lot of them we've got like wishing you weren't so far away, can't wait to see you, welcome to the neighborhood. It's got little silhouettes of 3 cats and a dog, a bird, a heart, and then it's got like 2 little flowers and some really neat stuff. You get 4 pieces of black cardstock, half sheets, 5.5 by 8.5, I believe. And you also get, I'm going to try to show you the cardstock first. That was important. And it also comes with, come on, what's the next thing I'm going to show you is this little background, a full A2 size background plate. And it cuts out this really cute little balcony, like with clotheslines and someone on 2 balconies. I'm not really explaining it well, sorry, but it's really adorable. I just love it. And I also got a couple add-ons. I got this one stamp set with the frame cuts of a little city, little city buildings, and this fancy dies of what is it, the 5 little houses with some trees, and they go just perfectly with this kit. Now for this first thing, we're going to start off, and I'm just going to stamp out the little kitties and the dog and little hearts that I'm going to use on some later cards. Now, I didn't film all of this in order. Through editing, I might get thrown off a little bit because, like I said, I did some different stamping and background coloring first, but I'm trying to edit it in the order that would make most sense to you. So the first thing I'm going to do is stamp these out with some Heroes Intense Black ink. Now, in hindsight, I kind of wish I would have used the VersaFine Black Onyx pigment ink because I just think that gives a much darker stamp. But I wanted to use as many Hero Arts items as I could, considering that this is a Hero Arts card, or Hero Arts cards, I should say. I end up making 6 cards tonight, and I try to make them all different. 2 of them are kind of similar. You'll see as we go along. I didn't want to make them exactly like every other card that I've seen made with Hero Arts. And so, that's where I was at with a lot of these. Now, this first card, I'm doing some background blending. And these are some colors I found on Pinterest when I just looked up night sky, ink blended night skies. Now it's only 3 colors, which is Twisted Citron. Let's see, where's my little sheet of paper with them on? It's got Twisted Citron, Pine Needles, and Chipped Sapphire. Now, when I first started, I'm like, I knew that what I had saw on Pinterest looked really good, but I was dubious, and I was thinking, is my ink blending that bad? I had pulled out some brand new domed ink blenders because I really didn't want to use the makeup brushes, blending brushes. I wanted a nice, rich blend. And here I am just putting some splatter on the back. Now I love the way this card smoothed out, and once I had the splatter on the back, it's just, I love it. So, it smoothed out really well. You can see by looking at it. Now that's the blend I loved when I saw it on Pinterest. So I'm taking the little background that I got from the background die in the kit, and I am just putting some glue on it. I wanted to do at least one card with this background, and I thought about cutting it up, but then I just thought I just like the background the way it is, and I want to use it at least on one card. So even though I've seen some other cards using this background die and putting it, directly on an inked background, I decided I was going to do that too. Now, my ink background looks a little bit different from other ink backgrounds, but there it is. And then I just put the sentiment, thinking of you, on it. And now I'm using some more of my Barely Art glue and putting it right to a card base. And that's going to be it for card number 1. Now for card number 2, we're doing some more ink blending, and we're using some candied apple, ripe persimmon, wilted violet, blueprint sketch, um, blue sapphire or whatever, you know what I'm talking about, and the black soot. And I am blending that from the bottom using the candy apple. And this is another background that I had seen on Pinterest. Now this background here, as I'm doing it and I'm going from the orange into the purple, I really should have thought it through a bit because it turned a little bit brown, which, purple and orange tend to do when they're together. Now they look really good there, but I was determined to get a good blend going. And the more I blended, the more brown it got. So I decided I was going to bring some campfire orange. What is it? I don't even remember the names of these, and it's on the other side of my room. So I brought in one of the newer colors, the campfire orange or whatever color that is, and I put that over the top because that's a little bit more opaque. And while I still have some of that brownish color going, as it dries, you don't see it as much. So I end up using the purple here, and then I go for the blueprint sketch, and let me see, what is that? The chipped sapphire. That's what it was. Why can't I remember chipped sapphire? Oh, you'd think I'd never used these colors before. They are new domes, but I brought them in because I did not want to use the makeup brushes. I'm not sure if I had said that earlier in my voiceover because I've erased a few things when I've really tripped over my tongue. I've had to start a couple times. So at any rate, so after I get everything blended, I end up putting the black soot at the very top and along the sides, which really didn't matter in the long run because I end up cutting this card panel down, as you will see in a little bit. There I am trying to get this blend going still. And I do, when I cut it down, end up leaving a little bit of the candied apple on the bottom. I like the way that looked. Now, when I saw it on Pinterest, it was a much more vibrant red looking on the bottom, but they had written it was candied apple. If I had to do it again for a more vibrant red, I think I would use the festive berry color. See, no, that color I remember when I could remember chipped sapphire or the campfire color. I still can't remember the color of that. It's probably there. You might be able to see it. I can't see it though. So I get these all blended out, and I am going to use some splatter again. And well, here you're going to see me use the totally useless black soot first, kind of putting that around. And I really do love the way that you might think these backgrounds aren't turning out, but as they dry, they really smooth out a whole lot. And it's almost amazing the way they smooth out. I almost want to make a bunch of badly blended backgrounds and then leave them to dry to see how much they smooth out, because the backgrounds you work on for a while smooth out beautifully. Here we are, just with that the oranges again, getting those blended in. And now I'm kind of cleaning up a little bit of my mess before I put it in the splatter box. Bring down my little box. Come on, I'm using, for splatter, I am using some titanium white Liquitex acrylic gouache. And now I'm just splattering it with like a fan brush. And I put a little bit of water in with the gouache, so it's really a thick acrylic gouache. But I just love the way that it sits on the paper top of it beautifully. So here's my little background, my little rectangle die where I cut out the background there, and you can see we cut off all the black soot. And I am using some gold paper from my stash, some mirrored cardstock, and I'm putting that on some a 4¼ by 5½ inch piece of black cardstock that came with the kit. And you know, all my cards except one are A2. The last card we do is a mini slimline. And here I am trying to get a piece of black and white baker's twine that I had in my stash to kind of do a drape. I don't want it straight across. I want it looking a little bit like a clothesline that's just kind of swinging in the wind there. And it's a little bit higher on one side than the other, but because it's draping, it really doesn't really matter. And I end up leaving it that way because it's not worth trying to pull it down again when I've got everything so well taped down. And now I am going to put this little birdie that I had embossed with some black ink and clear embossing powder I used, and I also embossed the little sentiment, "Let's hang out." So you can see where I kind of wanted that to look like a clothesline that was just kind of hanging there in the wind. And now I'm going to tape it. I'm going to glue it to my card base there. And I love the way this turned out after all, even with that kind of brownish orange stripe there. You can't really notice it now that it's dry. So that was card number 2. For card number 3, I took the little houses that I bought as extras with this card kit, and I made what looks like a little birdhouse. I ended up taking a piece of brown cardstock out of my stash, and I just cut, a basic what looks like a post, along with the 2 little other pieces were a little landing for my little birdhouse, is what I ended up turning this into. And I die cut it with some red and black paper, and I paper pieced it a bit. And I cut off the door so it looks like we've got an opening. And now I'm just going to take the little bird that I stamped, and I am going to glue that right on top of the birdhouse. Now you can see I've got this background that I took the big background stamp that came in the kit, and using some black ink, some VersaFine black onyx ink, and some clear embossing powder, I just embossed the whole back panel there. And the reason I use clear instead of black embossing powder is in case I got any little grains. You're not going to notice it when the embossing powder is clear. And then I just went ahead and I used the sentiment Home Sweet Home, which I also heat embossed with some clear embossing powder and the black onyx ink. And I just think it's brilliant that, if I would have used like black embossing powder, even though I used my anti-static bag, there probably would have been some grains that were all over the place. Now for card number 4. This one I'm not a big fan of, but I wanted, like I said, to try to use these stamps and things a little bit differently. So what I'm doing with this is making my own background pattern paper with the ink cubes that came in the kit. So I'm stamping the 2 little cats all over the place in multicolors. Now, not all of my stamps turn out like really perfect, but you're not going to use the Misty when you're stamping all over. It just wouldn't make sense. I'd be opening that door and closing it and opening it and closing it over and over and over again. In hindsight, if I had to do this card again, I think I would just use the orange ink all over the place, because I end up bringing in an orange ribbon with this card. And I just don't like the way that my background pattern paper ended up looking. And I don't know if it's only because I had 3 colors, or more likely because of the limited amount of stamps I was using. I was only using 3. After I had brought the cats in, I was trying to figure out that I needed something else. So I brought in the little heart because I'm going to use that as a die cut anyway. I've got my dogs barking in the background. I'm not sure if you can hear them. Hopefully you can't. If you can, I'm sorry. They'll stop eventually. I don't know what they're barking at now. So you can see my little hearts all over the place. And I cut that down to 4 by 5 1/4, and I'm going to put it on the piece of black cardstock that again came with the kit. Now this orange ribbon I did pull out of my stash, and I'm going to put that right across the card because I'm going to put the 2 little kitties and a heart on, and a heart on the kit, heart on the card. I'm tripping over my words here. And I wanted a little place for them to, look like they were sitting. I didn't want it to look like they were floating in space. And I thought this ribbon broke up the card a little bit. I still think it needs something else in the right-hand corner. And I'm still kind of contemplating what I can do to fix this card. I like to keep going with the card and see how it turns out. A lot of times cards I think are like failures aren't, but this one, I'm still on the fence with. If anybody can figure out what I need to do to make it look a little better, I'd appreciate it. I don't really want to use sequins on it, but there might be something else I can do. I even thought about splatter, but now that I've got it all like the ribbons and everything on it, that might be a little bit more difficult. So here I just I used some flat tape on the back to tape down, double-sided tape on the back to tape down my ribbon. And you're going to see me taping down my bow soon. I think first I'm going to glue down my 2 little cats. Now I arranged them so both of their tails face out instead of in. I'm just having a little bit of trouble getting it under the ribbon for some reason. Even though the ribbon only has 1 thin strip of double-sided tape going down the middle, I shouldn't have had any trouble at all getting my little cat put down. But it was being ornery, as cats often are. It did not want to let me put it down lower. Now I'm going to glue a little heart between them. I just think that's really cute. And I'm going to use the sentiment, "You make me happy," which, I think the heart is perfect. Now, like I said earlier, if I had to do it again, I'd use the VersaFine Black Onyx ink because that would have given a much sharper look for the 2 cats. And here I am putting some glue dots on my bow. On these big bows, I like to use at least 5 glue dots, one on each of the loopy parts, and one each on the tail and one in the middle. And I also use some liquid glue right in the middle to make it doubly secure. We're just pressing our bow down. And I'm going to glue my sentiment down as soon as I figure out where I want it. And I kind of settle on the right hand side down just a little bit from the top. And that's going to be card number 4. I think it's 4, isn't it? There's a card number 3. I get lost, I swear. Let me see, figure out which card is next. Yep. For the next card here, it is similar to card number 3. This is card 4, of course. Why I show some cards, longer than others at the end, I don't know. But yeah, this is card number 4. And with this one, I'm showing you how I inked up the background stamp. It got cut off in the first card or second card. I lose track. And so I didn't end up showing any of that. But I do have footage for this card here. And being as you've seen, you've seen one stamp and you've seen them all. So I used the VersaFine, the Versa. I am it's getting late. I used the sticky ink. How about that? And I used some Nuvo hot chocolate embossing powder. I thought it would give us a little bit more of a brown look for this card, but it doesn't. It still kind of looks black, but it's kind of got like a pearly sheen to it. And so I end up cutting it down a bit. I cut it down to 4 by 5 1/4. And I do end up mounting it on some more black cardstock. I debated just putting it on the card, but I thought it needed something. So here's where I'm bringing in my, my guillotine trimmer and just chopping off the sides. You see I go for each side because there's always a little bit of stray embossing powder on the sides, and that way I was able to cut it right off. And now I'm looking at it to see how it looked against the black, and I liked it just fine. I wasn't sure at first because it is hot chocolate embossing powder. I thought the black and the hot chocolate might look like too contrasting, but they didn't at all. They worked fabulously together. Now here I'm just figuring out, I was going to put that piece down, but then I'm like, duh, you can just cut that to like 4 inches too. You know what that card background is, so cut it down and quit worrying. So that's what I did. I cut it down, and I'm going to end up gluing that to the bottom of the card. Now, what I had done was I just took my scissors and I freehanded a little hill right there of some green paper. I'm not even sure whose paper that is. It was just a piece of scrap paper I had. And I am taking some of the little die cuts that I made way back when you saw me stamping in my Misty at the beginning, of the little cat and the little dog, and I am going to have these two facing each other. That's how they are in the stamp set, and that's how I want them to be on my card as well. Their little tails are in opposite directions, so I mean I could have had them back to back, but the card would not have worked then. Not with another little heart. So like I said, this is similar to a couple cards. It's similar to the one I did with the multicolored pattern paper, and then it's got the 2 little critters and a heart, and it's also similar to the one I did with the birdhouse because of the background stamp. So it pulled in a couple different elements there. And now I'm just gluing it to my card base. And get that to glue nice. And I put on the sentiment that says hello neighbor right there in the lower left hand corner. And that's going to be it for this card. Now for card number 6. This one drove me crazy. I started stamping it right on a background, and I ended up having all sorts of issues with getting fingerprints and not spacing everything right, even though I had spaced it out first. But I decided to start over because I really screwed up the card, or I would have kept it. I tried keeping it. So I am just taking a cloud stencil here, and I am inking up the background pretty heavy. I don't know if it's just me, but I tend to have some troubles, it seems, when I do clouds. They always look a little messy to me, but I didn't let it, get me down. I just kept going. And you're going to see me doing the whole background here. I probably should have sped it up just a little bit, but now that I'm into this voiceover, if I stopped and tried to speed this section up, it'll just give me fits, and I don't feel like doing it, so I'm not going to. You're going to have to watch me for a whole minute here. Well, I don't know if it's a minute. Might be 30 seconds. Probably longer than you want to watch. I'm sorry. But, it is what it is. So anyway, the card that I had tried to make originally was going to have clouds in the background, and I was going to mask them off. I had even had my masks cut down. And I was going to stamp them and then mask all the little buildings off and do the clouds. But because my buildings ended up spaced crazily, even though I measured them out, what they say, measure twice. But I didn't. I only measured once. And the fact that I had gotten some inky fingerprints on the card that I couldn't erase made me just say the heck with it and start over. Now here I'm thinking I might be done, and I try putting my buildings down, and I kind of realize that no, I need to go all the way to the bottom just because some of those spots don't look so good. Mostly where I end up putting my tree, I needed more ink because that just looked a little sad the way I had it. But I do like the way these buildings turned out. Now for these, I used a rainbow of colors from Brutus Monroe. I just pulled out whatever color was closest. Let me see. I'll grab them real quick. Okay, I figured while you're watching me do that. I have Bee Sting, Roar, Shooting Star, Clear Skies, and this is not Brutus Monroe, if that's what I said. There's Simon Hurley. No Diving, Fake Plant, and Crown Me. Those are the colors I used for my little rainbow houses. And I used, what was it? Some Distress Oxide for the clouds. I think it's Tumbled Glass I used for the background there. I'm a lot of help, aren't I? So here I am. I'm just gluing down my buildings now. I just love the way this rainbow buildings look on this background full of clouds. I mean, it's just so cheerful, and the Simon Hurley ink colors are just, they're bright, they're fun, and they make a wonderful rainbow. And what I tried to do was do every other building an outline building and a smaller solid building. And that way they just really worked out for this card. Now, if I was doing an A2 card, I would have kind of done it with the taller buildings and back with the solid buildings in front. But it's not an A2 card, it's a mini slimline. It's 6 inches by 3 1/4. And even though I was gluing these down and taking my time, my red building is still a little crooked. You know, it's kind of like the Leaning Tower of Tina. I like that. I should copyright that. And here's my little orange one. And see, I'm like all thumbs. I'm dropping stuff and just my die cuts are not plain nice. And here you're going to see me put this down a little crooked. And I end up having to move it a bit because my tree gets really squished. And my tree is ever slightly so crooked too, but that's because the foundation is crooked now because of that tall crooked building. You can't have a tall straight tree with a crooked foundation. So that's just me kind of adjusting it. And there it is. And now I decide that I'm going to fussy cut the sentiment that says, "Welcome to the neighborhood." I originally thought about just putting it square there on the card, but it didn't look too good that way, so I fussy cut it out. And then I'm like, even fussy cut out, this card just needs one more thing. And so this is when I bring in a little pink bow that I'm going to tie up using some ribbon from my stash. This is, I think, gross grain ribbon. I think that's what it's called. It's a real skinny ribbon though. And I'm just going to use the one glue dot for it because I think my glue dots might even be a little wider than the bow itself. So I figure one glue dot right in the center with a little liquid glue is going to be fine. It shouldn't go anywhere. I get this all glued down right up there in the clouds. And now we're putting our little glue dot on our little bow. At least eventually we'll get there. Get that back popped off. And now we're just going to put a little drop of glue on either side of that glue dot and pop that right down in the sky for our floating bow. So anyway, that's card number 6. Now, if you enjoyed this and all the work that I had to do to make these cards for you, please give me a thumbs up or subscribe. I'd love to have you. Anyway, that's it for now. Love every one of you. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye for now.